Well, the countdown for the country's biggest demolition is on. The Supertech Twin Towers in Noida will be demolished at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. The Noida Twin Towers are being demolished because of serious violations of building codes. The Supreme Court said that the Noida Authority and Supertech had engaged in nefarious complicity. Now, this has been a long-drawn battle that has been going on for over a decade. It was back in 2014 that the Allahabad High Court first ordered the demolition of the Twin Towers. The first complaint of violations to the Noida Authority was in 2009. The case eventually then reached the Supreme Court, and it was last year in August that the top court ordered the demolition within 3 months. And then there were still further delays, but finally 28th August was fixed as the day of this demolition. The top court also said that Supertech not only had to refund with interest the entire amount paid by the home buyers, but also bear the entire cost of the demolition itself. Now, about the demolition process, each floor of these two towers, Apex and Cyan, have been installed with 3,700 kgs of explosives, and they will be blown up together. But all of this, the entire demolition will be over in a matter of 9 seconds. There's been an exclusion zone that's been demarcated beyond which no person, vehicle or animal will be allowed during the demolition. Drones will be prohibited from flying in the exclusion zone as well. And for their own safety and as a precautionary measure, the residents of neighboring societies have also been evacuated. So while, of course, we're going to be tracking this entire demolition very closely, the larger issue here is whether this is going to serve as the grim lesson that it should to builders. Our phone lines are also open. Do call up and share your views as well. But first, let's take a quick look at this ground report sent by my colleague Ishika.
The massive Supertech Twin Tower that you can see on my left here is all set to be demolished in less than 24 hours. Now, this 103-meter in height Twin Tower with 32 floors is loaded with 3,500 kilograms of explosives. And this whole tower is going to be demolished in just 9 seconds. At 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, this massive building will turn into a heap of dust. Now, this dust is set to travel for at least 3 kilometers. Thus, as you can see, the building has been covered with geotextile fabrics. Now, the government claims that because of this, the dust won't be able to travel too far. Two companies that have got the contract for this demolition are Edifice Engineering and Jet Demolitions. Now, they seem to be pretty confident that this will be a safe demolition. Now, the demolition will take place at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, but the authorities have made it clear that no humans or animals should be seen in this area after 7 a.m. tomorrow. Thus, the residents have taken it upon themselves to rescue the animals.
Well, let me, in fact, welcome our guests who are joining us this evening. Jayant Bhushan, Senior Advocate, Professor Anupam Saxena, Associate Dean and Director, RICS School of Built Environment, Amity, Noida, and Ranjana Bharadwaj, Vice President, NEFOMA, that's the Noida Estate Flat Owners Main Association. Thank you all of you so much for joining us. Let me start with you, Mr. Jayant Bhushan. In terms of, the fact that this demolition is finally happening, there have been huge amount of delays. But in terms of the owners, those who had bought places there, what next in terms of the refund that they're supposed to get?
Well, I think most of the owners have already got refunds. Okay. You see, the reason why the matter was pending in the Supreme Court for so many years, and the primary reason was that the Supreme Court adjourned it on multiple occasions to enable people who wanted refunds to apply for a refund and ensured that whoever applied for a refund got it. It is, I think, a minority of flat buyers who didn't at that stage apply for a refund and waited for the Supreme Court case to get over before deciding to apply. So it is only those minority flat buyers who are left. I mean, there are a few, but the Supreme Court has also made provision for them. They have directed Supertech to return the money. Supertech, as you know, is in the NCLT. It's in insolvency proceedings. So they have ensured that some money is kept aside for refunding the buyers of these buildings.
Okay, all right. Mr. Bhushan, do you think that this is now going to serve as that reminder that it's supposed to, as a warning as far as builders are concerned, that you can't just take things for granted and sort of, completely violate things?
I hope so, and it's supposed to. It's a huge demolition. It'll cost the builder a lot of money. So these buildings were totally illegal. They were clearly built in collusion with Noida, and that's the finding of the Supreme Court. There are various reasons why they were illegal. The two main reasons are, one, that the distance criterion was not met. They are too close to the existing buildings. With this height of a building, it should have been at least twice the distance away. Apart from that, you see, and this is a very important principle that the Supreme Court has laid down. Once a builder completes a project and sells the entire project to buyers who thereafter spend their hard-earned money and move into that project, you can't then change the project. You can't take a green area and make new buildings only because Noida Authority has come out with some additional FAR, etc., which can be purchased, and the builder purchases the additional FAR. What about the rights of buyers who have bought these flats thinking that there's going to be a garden in front of me, and suddenly they're faced with this, building which is 3 times as tall as their existing buildings, cutting out all light, air, and now instead of 600 flat owners in that complex, there are going to be 1,500. So that's a very important principle that the Supreme Court has laid down, that you cannot do this. Once you have sold the entire project, and you have not kept back any area for further construction. You have told the buyers, look, this is all that there is going to be. There is going to be this green area. There are going to be 600 flats. There are going to be these kinds of amenities. There are going to be clubhouses, etc. You can't then change that without the consent of the existing flat buyers. That's a very important principle that the Supreme Court has laid down. Now, I hope this serves as a warning and a lesson to all builders that, look, if you take the law into your own hands, if you collude with the authorities, make something illegal, then, well, you better be careful, because the courts may direct you to demolish it. Right. And the courts have sort of protected the interests of the flat buyers and ensured that the person bearing the brunt of this demolition is Supertech itself.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Ranjana, let me come to you here, because as far as Noida is concerned, this is one case that we have seen that's come to this kind of a conclusion. But there are several issues. There's several residents who are fighting for justice. What would you like to say at this point?
First of all, I would like to thank the Supreme Court for this verdict. Because of this demolition of this Twin Towers had happened. I'm not happy for this demolition because there are many disadvantages of that. I'm happy only because it's a lesson for upcoming other real estate builders who will 100 times think before building the illegal towers. And this will be lesson to the authority that without scanning, without saying the proper papers, and they give the NOC. It's all because of the corruption, all these things that happened. And I do want that government should intervene in future too, so that no such demolition will repeat in future. And we need the honest people, in fact, in authority also, yes, as India is full of the bribed people. And if we will say the side effects of this demolition, as we know, the Emerald Court and ATS is nearby about, and some towers are 9 meters far away and some are 25 meters far away. As I'm not the technically sound person, but as a common person, I can feel when this demolition will happen. No doubt it will happen. Some technical people had come from Africa also. It will come down like the house of cards. So it's safer. They have covered with a geofabric also. Authority has taken all sort of precautions.
Yes.
But still there will be some side effects. Maybe some pillars will be vacant.
Right,
so
absolutely, Ranjana.
audit should be after the demolition of these towers.
On that exact point, I want to go across to Professor Anupam Saxena, who's with us. Professor Saxena, obviously what Ranjana has just pointed out is a big concern with a lot of people who are staying in the surrounding areas. What can you tell us about the kind of impact that this could have, and what kind of precautions should homeowners or people who are staying in the surrounding areas take after the demolition is done with?
Well, Avni, I'll first start with the fact that my sister is a resident of Emerald Court, so I'm very concerned personally about also this demolition.
Right.
See, this is normally a very scientific method. There is a lot of research which is done before any kind of a decision is taken on how much of explosive is required, where it would be deployed, etc. So depending on the structure of the building, the effort is that building collapses vertically and doesn't have any impact sideways. So obviously a lot of study has been done. Everything is done, but every such project is always unique in its nature. So you can't say that past success of doing such things is a guarantee for a future success also. There could be many things which can be expected. Firstly, we'll keep our fingers crossed that everything goes as expected and as planned by edifice. But still, there could be vibrations. Now, there would be vibrations, but what would be the impact of vibrations would also depend on the condition of the nearby buildings. So if there are old buildings in the Emerald Court, how strong they are to take these vibrations will ultimately be revealed once those vibrations have been absorbed by these buildings. Secondly, we say that the dust will be spread in a certain area, which also will be, there would be water which would be sprayed on that so that it settles down quickly. But when there is an explosion, you can always expect something to fly out. And in past in history,
right,
people have experienced like even 1 kilometer was the distance where things flew off to. So
right,
so anything on that account can happen.
Right.
Similarly, we see ultimately it's human beings who are going to do this. So we can also look at some human error in calculation or in assumption or in the research carried out or in the data accumulated. So anything which goes untoward can have a serious impact.
Yes.
Secondly, like I said, the structure also can get, of the nearby buildings can get affected.
Right.
So once this happens, we will have to go and check each and every building for the damages, possible damages, and then the rectification of those damages.
Yes, absolutely, Professor Saxena. And I'm going to come back to you to sort of break that down still further. But before that, let me go across to some callers who are joining us on the show. Karan from Noida is joining us. Karan, thanks for calling in. Go ahead. What would you like to say?
Firstly, I'm not Karan. I'm Colonel Arora.
Colonel Arora, my apologies. Colonel Arora, my apologies. Please go ahead.
I live within 2 kilometers of these structures. What I'm amazed is that not only your channel, but every channel is just covering the demolition and blaming the builder. The builder couldn't move an inch without the connivance and full sanction by Noida authority staff. Nobody mentions their names. Their names and their pictures should be displayed, and it should be broadcasted as to what punishment those guys are being given. That's one. Second, within a kilometer of these multi-storied buildings is a huge shelter for cows and animals like dogs and donkeys. Nothing has been covered on that aspect. Players who are within 100 yards of this building, they've taken care of them. But what of the hundreds of dogs and cattle which are within half a kilometer of this building? Nothing has been said about that.
All right, Colonel, some extremely relevant points that you've raised there. And yes, you're absolutely right. It is a connivance with the authorities, and that entire nexus needs to be seen and sort of broken down. Thank you so much for calling us. Anil is also joining us. Anil, go ahead. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Avni.
Good evening.
And good evening to the panelists. I agree with the panelists that it is a lifetime lesson for the builders. And secondly, there will be huge impact on environment at least for 1.5 months, which has to be factored into, because till today nobody knows how much is the exact quantity of trouble that will come out. Now, the moot question arises here whether the same ratio will be applied to the other projects approved by the government and also constructed in private-public participation. Because even the government contracts, even the CVA which is being constructed now in Delhi, that is also in violation of environment conditions.
Yes.
How come CVA has been given straight away go-ahead signal by bulldozing entire environmental norms? I am shocked.
Yes, absolutely.
Will Supreme Court take the same view?
Yes.
That's my question.
All right, Anil. Thank you so much for calling us with your views and questions. Sudarshan is joining us as well from Bengal. Sudarshan, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question, that is the alternative way without demolishing that building, the government can open there in schools or colleges or some other ways it can be used. It is a huge loss of capital and the promoter should be punished by penalizing some amount that to be fixed by the court or government. This is my question.
Right.
It is a huge loss of capital.
Right. Yes, that indeed is true, Mr. Sudarshan. It is that, but I guess this serves, this is more important to also make a point. But yes, you're right. There are people who do believe that the demolition shouldn't, have gone through like this. But Devjani also joining us from Noida. Devjani, go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking me on. So I have been a resident of Noida for the past 6 years. And I have noticed that the infrastructure in general is very good. But being a Noida resident and being a home buyer myself, I've come to realize that the builders are really interested in scamming honest people of their money. So let this be a lesson for all the builders out there who are, depriving the home buyers of their rights and trying to push the protocols and, trying to make the situation worse. So I really appreciate the fact that the courts have taken up this matter, and I appreciate the Residents' Welfare Association as well for making sure that this goes through. But let this be a lesson for all the builders who are basically scamming and cheating everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for calling us. Ashwini is also joining us from Delhi. Ashwini, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I agree with most of the speakers who have spoken before me. Government should make this a hospital or a school or do something. I mean, it is an utter waste. And the people who are, suffering is the builder, and the people who have paid for this money, okay, they will get their money back. But it is really embarrassing to see government doing this and not picking up on the officials who will let this happen. I mean, this does not happen overnight. It took long time to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ashwini Goyal, for joining us with your views as well. Mr. Bhushan, I mean, a lot of, outrage as far as scholars are concerned. People are hoping that this is going to serve as a lesson, and all of us are hoping that it is going to. But this entire connivance with the authorities that one of our callers was also pointing out, do you think there's enough done to sort of break down that nexus and actually hold the people responsible accountable?
Absolutely. I mean, there is, all this happens on files. The sanctions have been granted totally contrary to the norms, etc. So it can easily be traced out as to who's responsible for giving that sanction.
Yes.
You see, all these authorities don't function in the air. They function on files. There are file notings for everything. So presumably, as per the Supreme Court direction, they have to investigate as to who has done this and take action. So hopefully action will be taken against, and I'm sure in a case of this magnitude, it must have gone to fairly high levels. So I hope action is taken against the Noida authority officials who have enabled this construction to happen.
Yes,
and I just wanted to say, because a couple of callers mentioned that, this should be saved, it should be turned into a hospital because otherwise it would be a waste. Right apart from the fact that this has to be a lesson to other builders, there are a couple of other points. You see, this minimum distance criterion is a safety issue also. And that's because of fire safety. The higher the building, the further away it should be from the next building, because if one building catches fire, the fire can jump out to the other building, and the other building can also catch fire. That's one of the reasons why this minimum distance criterion has been fixed in the regulations. The other thing is light and air. If you have these buildings and a very tall building comes up very close, in fact, the people who live in this Aster 2, which is a building right next door, 9 meters away, their life has become miserable. Earlier, they used to have a green belt in front of them, a sort of a park. Now they have this building towering over them. It's an 11-storied building, the Aster 2. And this, what is coming up here, is a 40-storied building. It's already reached 30 or 32 stories. So their light and air is completely cut off. They live in darkness. So you can't say, well, these buildings should be saved, and these people who have been there and who have been wronged, they should spend the rest of their lives in this misery. So there are important reasons as to why this building should be knocked down. It should come down, quite apart from the fact that it will serve as a lesson to other builders that this can't be done and they will be punished.
On the phone line from Kalyan. Siddharth, go ahead, please. Siddharth, if my voice is reaching you, please go ahead.
Good evening to all the panelists. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
My concern is the demolition is being done with so much of interest. But what about all those buildings which are already constructed on the site? In case, due to the demolition vibrations or the tremors, if any of the buildings which are on the site is cracked or damages happen, then who's responsible for this?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to take that point, Siddharth, that very question I want to take across to Professor Anupam Saxena. Thanks, Siddharth, for calling in. Professor Saxena, what you were talking about earlier as well, if you can list out what residents of nearby buildings or the societies of nearby buildings should be doing after this demolition, completes as safety measures.
So, Avni, normally we would check the structure. And there are specific tests for that, like entity is a non-destructive test where you use several different tests to check, the structure, the strength of the concrete which is there, which has been used. So there have been many tests which you carry out, and then you ascertain whether the building has really got superficial damages or there are serious damages. In case there are some serious damages which are which you come across, then again there would be an assessment done whether they can be still repaired, or there could be some strengthening which can be done to the building. Like, for example, there's something called jacketing, where we use external columns to strengthen some weak structure. But jacketing itself is a complex process which cannot be carried out with people living in the building.
Right.
So there are tests which will have to be carried out. There would be then again measures, but again, like I said, some of the buildings are pretty old. So what kind of damage can happen to them will only be ascertained once you start testing the structures and all.
Yes.
And then again, whether they are repairable or not. Now 1%, let's say rarest of the chances that there is a damage which is not repairable. Then it means that this building also will have to be brought down. Something like that.
Yes, absolutely. So some very important points that residents in the surrounding area, surrounding buildings need to keep in mind as well. But that will be clear only post the demolition. Manohar joining us from Delhi. Manohar, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying this is a case like this, Supertech will be 1 in a million builders.
Yes.
It is colossal. It is a hello.
Yes, Mr. Manohar, go ahead. Go ahead.
So what happens is that this loss by refunding, how will the buyers will go somewhere else, and who will pay today's cost?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Manohar. Completely understand your point of view there as well on this issue. at this point in time. But on that note, I'm afraid we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank my panelists for joining us on the show tonight. The demolition is tomorrow in the afternoon. All of this preparation that has been going on is for that 9 seconds where these entire 2 towering buildings will be brought down like a pack of cards within a period of 9 seconds. The impact of that on the other buildings, as many residents have pointed out, they're afraid of, will only be known post that. But the only hope here is that this serves as a reminder, a grim message to builders and to authorities that this kind of connivance, this kind of nexus cannot and should not be taken lightly.